do it.
This is so weird.
It is really weird, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Alright.
First thing I did, separate the class to a separate model file.
Yeah, it's hurtful. Just if you hold down, yeah.
Good enough.
So hit Command N. Can you tell us about what you're doing as you do it?
Yeah, if I can get this to work.
Yep.
Okay, I separate the class into a separate model file. And
Guys, you won't need your computers or your phones while Sam's coding.
now that's set up, I already have the table view.
This has yesterday's code in it.
Yeah.
You can delete it all.
Okay. No, I deleted the overlay.
Cool. It's yelling at me about it. What are you doing now?
Now I'm going to add an outlet for the table view.
Add an outlet for the table. Try building it. Let's see what happens. Can you tell us about that error?
So table, data source, and delegate. Why isn't this working?
You're making this up.
Thank you.
So it doesn't conform. Now it's telling you what it needs to conform.
Right.
Cool.
So for this, I call in my info from the model.
It's info from the model.
Is going to be equal to the amount of movies in the movie array. So it's data.count. For this,
So what are you looking for now?
now I'm using DQ reusable cell. I have to add an identifier to my cell. If I can see where it is. What does that say?
Our cell.
Our cell. For then I make a variable for the movie data using indexPath.row.
Can you tell us about those two properties you just said?
Yeah. Which ones? These two?
Yep.
This changes the title. This changes the subtitle on the cell to the name of the movie and the genre. And I have to return cell. Where is it?
I don't know. It crashed. What happened? Let's check the output. Pull that up. Scroll all the way up in the output. Probably give us a really helpful message at the top. Terminating app due to uncurrent exception, something something. This class is not key value compliant for the key our table. Anyone have any idea of what happened?
I know, because I do this all the time. When you deleted the outlet, not the deleted protection of the outlet, you did not delete it.
And this.
do the same thing. All the time. Nice. Cool. Awesome. Did you get to the last part? Where you sorted the genre?
Nope.
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 Okay.
That's as far as I got.
Okay, cool. Let's give Sam a hand. Was anyone able to figure out how to sort this by genre? Anyone have any ideas, even if you didn't get to it? Kevin? Sounds like you did a lot of data processing in your controller there. Can you think of a way that you might have done it a little differently? Okay. Michelle? Uh-huh. That's sorted. Whoa. Then did you do this? Okay. The other one. Okay. Gotcha. Still seems like we're doing some work in our controller that relates to data. Does anyone have some? This sounds like it'll probably work. Let's run it. The goal is, if we want to sort movie data, that's data stuff, right? That's not controller stuff. Cool. Nice. So we could say something like static let sorted movies equal, what is this called? Movies dot sorted. Like that. Oh, I need a closure. Okay. Let's see. Oh no, what did I do? Movie data. Data. Oh no, what did I do? Missing argument. Thanks, Xcode. Cool. So now we could say in our view controller, the data that we want is movie data dot sorted movies. And what I might do in my model file is, since I'm not going to use movies, I might make this a private static constant, so that the only thing that can access it is movie data, because the only thing we're using outside of this file right now is sorted movies. What are some questions about this model? IB. Okay. Yes. The class movie. This guy? Let's see what happens if we try to use that. Or, yeah. So if we go to movie here, we say let newest or static let newest movie equal movie that we initialize, a whole bunch of stuff. Sorry? Oh. What movie do you want to make? What movie should this be? Goodfellas. Goodfellas. What year was it made? 94? Okay. What's its genre? Horror. Who's the cast? Robert De. Is it 2 words?
Yeah.
I don't know. What's so fun? Joe Pesci? What's an Ray Adam Jackson? Okay. Locations? I think it's like the suburbs of like New York. You know? Sorry? Oh. Okay. Is that where it takes place? I don't know anything. Long Island. Got our database in the back. NYC. Great. Poster image. So on and so on. You get it. Okay. Let's see how this description works a little differently. If I say, I've got to create this our newest movie is movie data dot newest movie data what did I call you? Oh no, what did I do wrong? Let's go take a look. Static let newest movie equal a movie. That makes sense to me. Why can't I use it? Okay. Alright, my computer was just a little slow. Now, just for the sake of looking at it in my viewed load, newest movie.movie. There's a description, there's a cast, there's a genre, there's locations. What does that public do? Doesn't look like it's doing anything different here, right? So Alex's question was, in the movie class, which I can keep jumping to the definition of by going here. What does this public var mean? Are you ready? Swift, what is public var? Access control. You can set specific access levels. We've seen that before. We've used the word private. Open and public access enable entities to be used within any source file. You can typically use open or public access when specifying the public interface to a framework. The difference between open and public access is described below. What's that? A module is a package of behavior. Kind of like UIKit, the foundation. Open access only applies to classes and class members, and it differs from public access. Classes with public access can be subclassed only within the module where they're defined. Class members, this is about how you might make a whole framework, for lack of a better way of explaining right now, how you might make a whole framework out of your code. So right now we're all working within one project, one framework. If we wanted to export our code so that other people could just use it like we do UIKit, where it's like, I use Alex's class by importing his module, then this public is going to specify that it's something you can use by using my framework. Right now, it's not going to matter. Okay, we made an app. That's cool. Let's say, what we're focusing on today, I should say, is it's really nice that these prototype cells give us a few different styles, but it'd be even better if we could just make our own. Right? Olympia is pumped. So if we go to the identity inspector, we see that the class of this is a UI table view cell. It makes sense. UI table view cells have something called style. Have a property called style that lets us pick from 4 different preset options and also one other one. I wonder if I go and look at my view controller and I'm going to get rid of this because we don't need it. If I were to go look at that cell that I was using, and I looked at cell.style maybe, or let's see how we can figure out what the style of a cell is. I don't know. Maybe something like cell style. Does anyone have any idea? Because if you don't have an idea, we're going back here. UI table view cell style programmatically Swift. How to set style. Interesting. UI table view cell style. Subtitle. Interesting. Let's see what that is. UI table view cell style. Will this work? Let Q equal UI table view cell. No, there's nothing like that. Init with a style, UI table view cell dot cell style. Let's see. Oh, there are only a few options. I wonder if this is an enum. It looks like it. If I go in and jump to the definition, wow, cell style is an enum. That's great. But there are only 4 styles for us to pick through. It's kind of lame. Today what we're going to focus on is making our own UI table view cells. What we do is, that's all gone, okay. What we're going to do is, we are going to subclass UI table view cell. So we're going to create a custom class. And I think Olympia did this just before. I'm going to, for now, say in our table view that there are no prototype cells. And instead, I'm going to create a new file. This Cocoa Touch class, Cocoa is a framework that is underlying the actual way that the UI is implemented. So it's not Interface Builder, which is this tool to help you make an app. Cocoa is what creates the actual UI in an app. So what you create in Interface Builder gets translated into Cocoa. An English version of the term framework. Yes, a framework is a group of code that serves a specific purpose that you should be able to use without knowing much about how it works. So for example, UIKit sorry, when I say about how it works, without knowing the implementation. So for UI kit, you don't need to know the implementation for a UI button to use that button. So framework puts together all that code for you so you don't have to create it. All right, let's make a Cocoa Touch class. Ready? We name our class here. What should we call it? Cocoa Puffs? Let's do something related to this project. So let's pick something specific to the data we've been working with. Let's say our app is specifically for movies. How about just movie table view cell? So this is a table view cell for showing information about movies. It's a class. We said it's going to subclass something specific. This NS object is just broadly any object that you can put into the UI. The NS, we saw NS index the other day. NS, what do we call that what do we call a common set of letters that we see between a bunch of definitions such as UI, button UI, table view, UI. What do we just call UI there? Does anyone remember? So we know UI stands for user interface, but why do all of those have the letters U and I before them? Yeah, but why did it get named that? So that's not actually how the code works. So all those classes deal with the UI, and so whoever created the UI kit said, I'm going to namespace, so I'm going to have at the beginning of the name of each of these objects the letters UI, so that people know these are things from my kit, from UI kit. So NS object, NS range, which you saw the other day, NS a bunch of other stuff, are also namespaced. Those come from, if you look up the history of Apple, Steve Jobs got fired and created a company called Next and created a paradigm called Next Step for programming. All of these NS things come because he was like a megalomaniac that had to bring it back with him when he went back to Apple. So all of these NS prefixed objects are him saying, no, we're using the language that I made it in my old place. You can't use anything else. So it's the legacy of Apple forces people to use these NS things. But we don't have to use an NS object. What did we say we're going to subclass this with? Cool. UI table view cell. What about this button? Has anyone seen this yet? Also create XIB file. You haven't seen it? Interesting. Whether to create an XIB file with the same name. Well, let's go see what a zib is. What is a zib file? Stands for XML Interface Builder. Interface Builder is a software application which allows you to develop graphical user interface with the help of Cocoa and Carbon. Carbon? I don't know. I'll let you do that. The generated files are either stored as nib or zib files. XML Interface Builder. So XML is that key value pairing that we've seen before when we look at changes in storyboard, where it says I've got a label, here are some values on it. Interface Builder is the program that we're using to design it. So XML Interface Builder is just a file that properly stores all that information that we set in the UI. We're not going to use that right now. Thank God, right? If we create this, I'm just going to create it as a class. Now when we take a look at it, it's a movie table view cell, which is subclassed from UI table view cell. It's got these automatic override functions. What do you think they do? It gives you a hint. What does this first one do? Cool. And what do you think its purpose is? They try to give you a hint about how you should use it. Okay. And it gives you a comment. Initialization code. So you can think of this, as similar to the view did load for a view controller. This is when you first create a table view cell of this specific class, movie table view cell. So maybe we might say every time I create a movie table view cell, I might print out something, or I might add to that cell something. Whatever you need to do to initialize it, you can set up in here. So think of that as similar to the view did load for a table view cell. What about set, what about set selected? They also give you a hint here about what it should do. It overrides and implements the superclass's set selected, and then it tells you what are you going to do with it. Eric? We just read the comment. What do you guess it's doing? Cool. So configure the view. So probably there's a view in our cell. We've seen that before where when we add a cell, there's a content view that's automatically added. When is it going to configure the view? What do we mean for the selected state, if you took a guess? Yeah, so I think it means when you select this cell itself, what do I do? How do I change the view? Or what is some other stuff that might happen in here? So we saw yesterday there's a table view delegate method for selecting a row in a table view. Table view cells can also recognize when you've selected them. So there are two different ways that we can make changes in our apps based on selecting a row in a table view. In the table view delegate, let me see if it's still there. Nope. But in the table view delegate, it's table view did select row at index path. And then you might say print index path. So that's in the table view. It's saying when you select a specific row, I want you to do something. In our custom table view cell, this is saying when you tap me, so when you tap an instance of this class, do something. These are separate responsibilities. Some things you want the table view to handle, and some things you want the table view cell to handle. Can anyone think of an example of when you might use one or the other? Take 2 minutes to think about maybe apps you've used that use a table view, which is probably all of them, and when you might want a row in that to handle the activity versus a table view to handle the activity. All right, what are some ideas? Anyone think of anything cool? You didn't even have to code for this question. Wasn't that cool? What's that? That's true. How do you know if you're right if you can't hit play and see the result? Well, think about what if you had an app where each of these did something. Maybe you want something different to happen each time. Maybe you might assign information to the table view cell that lets it do that. But maybe you might have the table view be the one that does that. So for Olympia's table view before, she set up a segue from the table view to another view controller where anytime you pressed a row, so in the view controller, if you did select row at index path, it would go to that person's profile or detail page. But maybe for each of those people, maybe when she selected one of the cells and she wanted to scramble all the letters in that subtitle label, maybe she would do that there. Or maybe if she had two prototype cells, I know I'm not running her app, but say if I had two prototype cells and I wanted each cell to do something differently when I tapped it, I might do it on the cell. I'd say generally if you want to do changes to the UI of a cell, do that in the set selected. If you're dealing with data in the cell, so if you're dealing with going to a specific person's profile, like we saw in that movie app this morning, in that profile app this morning, do that in the table view. Try to hold as little information as you can in the movie table view cell because this is a view. It shouldn't really be interacting with any data. Makes sense. So this is the first view that we are making, first custom view we are making programmatically. For a view class, treat it like you would a view in the storyboard. You don't want it to hold data. You don't want it to be directly related to the model. Instead, you want it to interact with a touch or change based on something the controller tells it to do. So with that in mind, let's go back to our storyboard. Yes?
So then this couple test class is not a model, you would put this in the control folder as well?
You put this in a view folder. And let's see why that is right now. So now I've got a table view cell prototype that I've added in my table view here. I can go ahead to the identity inspector now and say that specifically this is a movie table view cell. So the class of this is the class that we just created. If I want to use it by dequeuing it from this table view, I'll still need to give it a reuse identifier. It might make sense to call it that same thing so that you know how to find it. So call it the same thing as your class in the reuse identifier so you know what you're talking about when you use a string to initialize one of these. We'll do that in just a second. First, if I have this selected, when I hit my attributes inspector, this works, right? Hang on. What I should be able to do is look at that cell and then start drawing outlets and actions from the cell itself. So let's see if we can set that up. If I just go look through my files, go to movie table view cell. So this is the class definition for the cell that we've got right here. It's not working. Olympia, do you have any suggestions? Hi. How come when I click my movie table view cell, which is of the class movie table view cell, I can't link it to the actual class file? I want to make an outlet between them.
Right. If you define it, define internal file, I think you actually have to go to the library cell from there, and then that cell converts to your directory for class.
Interesting. Let's see how that works. All right, gonna get rid of that guy. I'll make this a movie table view cell with the reuse movie table view cell. Interesting. Let's see if it can connect. No. I'm sad. So I manually changed this instead of automatically. I just scrolled through my files and I said, how do I get here? I don't know. Does anyone have any suggestions? Can someone tell me what I'm trying to do so that maybe we could find it out from another source? Trying to make a custom cell, and I want to connect it to my UI table view cell. The reason this is not working is because I don't need an outlet from the cell to the cell itself. I set its class. If I have stuff inside of my cell, then I can create an outlet into this class. But right now, all I have is a cell whose class is the class I've created. No outlet necessary. You've actually just said all the behavior in my movie table view cell is whatever is in this class. I also don't need to connect my content view because similar to the self.view in a view controller, this content view is just self.view content view in a UI table view cell. So that's what's built in. You've got a content view, and you've got this cell itself, which is what this class is defining, just like a view controller. Right now I don't. We could probably do something. But let's just look again, because this is how Cocoa Touch works. When I've clicked my view controller, I didn't have to set up this outermost view, this content or default view. I didn't have to create any lines between the view controller there and the view controller in my code because the class of my view controller is view controller. The same exact thing works for this movie table view cell. Its class is movie table view cell. I don't have to connect it to that movie table view cell. And I don't have to connect the content view because that's just self.content view. Yes? Mm-hmm. I agree. Can you tell me why? Anthony, do you have an answer? Okay. Do you want to give it a shot? You're so good at the no, but let's go for yes now. Let me mirror the question to you, and then maybe we can figure it out together. So in our view controller, what we want to do is we want to eventually, once this is set up, have these be the cells used in each row. The question was, would we add all of the information for the cells used in each row in the view controller or in that custom cell that we created called movie table view cell? And the hint I'll give you is think about which part of MVC each of those things is. Okay. Do you want to phone a friend? Do you want to phone Carrie? No. All right. Yes. I'm sorry? Yes. Okay, I will tell you the answer. You know how much I hate this. It should be in the controller because you're getting data. We go look at our controller. You are getting your data from the model, right? Data. And you are then setting it to the view. So this is when we used that subtitle prototype cell. The cell, the prototype cell, has on it a text label and a detail text label. And we set the values for those. So we set up the view in the controller by having the controller go and look at the model. So the controller goes and looks at the data. Our views, which is what this is an example of, should not hold that model data. They should just update based on what the controller tells them to do. So for example, if we go to our movie table view cell, and inside of it we put a label, now there's a label in here. Cool. Okay. Now we should be able to create an outlet from the label because this label is in the content view of this cell, which is of the class movie table view cell. And if I call this genre label, that's great because our movie table view cell has the specific job of showing movie stuff. So rather than those UI table view cells that we used out of the box that have a text label and a detail text label, I now specifically know why I have that label. That label is for the genre. And that makes it much easier for me to go and look at my view controller and say, oh, okay, for the genre label, I'll set the text to be whatever that movie's genre is. It makes it much easier to use these custom cells. Sunny. We're not yet using that movie table view cell, but I'm just showing how we want to replace this information.
So that file is another example of a view. The name of that storyboard is also a view, but it just has an interface that interact with other controllers. Is that right?
Yes. So Interface Builder builds your views and connects them to, it builds your views using that XML format, and it connects them to the files that tell them how to behave.
And that's why the other file was a file, because it then connects it to that.
Mm-hmm.
And is there ever a time where we'll have multiple controllers?
Monday. Monday is that day. And then every day after that as well. Sorry, just to, give you the full range. Cool. So let's run it. Let's see what happens. It's going to fail. Let's get rid of this. Not worry about that. That was from before. Let's see if it gets mad. Oh no, it crashed. Allison, why was that? Cool. So we get this error saying unable to dequeue a cell with identifier our cell. I changed the reuse identifier from our cell to the name of this new class. So it crashed because it was going to try to initialize something of a class. And then when it didn't find it there, it was like, I really don't know what to do. I'm just going to abort. So what we can do to clear that up is we can say something with a movie table view cell identifier. Let's run it again and see how it gets used. Interesting. Doesn't seem like it's doing what we want, because it's just adding to the default text label of a UI table view cell the text for the name of the movie, and then because the style isn't a subtitle UI table view cell, this detail text label never gets set up. What is the only text label on our UI table view cell here? Does anyone remember what it's called? Let me go to our class. Shout it out. There's a genre label. Cool. Genre label. Oh man, it's not coming up. Does anyone know why it's not coming up? This is probably the most important part of this lesson today. Sunny.
Calling it themselves, which is a model. And, oh wait, and it's a different view.
Right, so let's look at what cell is. Cell is a UI table view cell. It's not a movie table view cell right now. I'm going to make it a UI table view cell using something that I've used before and been yelled at for, but is now the appropriate thing to use. It's called downcasting, where I say, take that thing and give it to me specifically as a type. This is called downcasting. It's taking an object, it's taking something of a certain type, and trying to convert it to another type. It's saying, if you have the ability to do that, please do. And luckily, the cell in our storyboard with the identifier movie table view cell can be turned into a movie table view cell because that's its actual class. So it has all the attributes it needs. So this downcasting is saying, go and get this whole thing. So the return value of table view dot dequeue reusable cell with all that information. The return type for that always is UI table view cell. Now I'm saying, okay, this might turn out nil, which is why I'm using optional binding. But if you are able to turn that cell into a movie table view cell, do some stuff in this block. So if you're able to dequeue that cell that we've defined in our storyboard and then convert it to a movie table view cell, do whatever is in here. So we're using optional binding to use the specific type of table view cell that we want. We're using optional binding when retrieving a specific type of view. Felix.
How is downcasting different from what we retrieve the text from the like if we had a number we just taken from it like that?
So yeah, let's take a look at that. Let's say that cell, movie, table view cell, doesn't have an initializer that just takes a cell. So you would need to set up a custom initializer. for right now, we can just use, come back. If we use downcasting, it's a very verbose way of saying, here's exactly what's going on. You go to the storyboard, you go to that table view that we have an outlet to, you look in it and try to get some reusable cell, so some prototype in there with the identifier movie table view cell, get that whole thing, and then see if it can be a movie table view cell. And if that can happen, maybe we'd grab this movie and set that first so we have the data available before we do any stuff. And if that works, have that cell's genre label be movie.genre and return the cell. And then if that doesn't work, we could say let cell 2 equal UI table view cell and have cell 2's text label.text be the movie.name, cell 2's detail text label.text be movie.genre. And so if this works, if we are able to get a movie table view cell, we will set the genre and return that cell. Since we're returning it here, we don't need an else. We don't need to worry about it because we'll have already exited this function. But if it doesn't work, then here's kind of the default thing I want you to do. If you're not able to get my movie table view cell, do this other stuff. Sunny. For cell 2, the index, what do you mean?
Oh, I see. And make a variable for
Yeah. So Sam set up what data he's getting so that he can then use it throughout his whole function. Let's try running it. What do you think will happen here? Let's get some guesses. Hildy, what do you think is going to happen? Just guess. Okay. Albert says it's going to break. Bold guess. Magic. It's so the opposite of magic. We just did a lot of work. Let's run it first, and then we'll see. The movie table view file just has an outlet from that label in the movie table view cell. Whoa. Yeah. All right, so let's just talk first. Which cell is in each row, cell or cell 2? Cell is in each row. So this worked, the downcasting worked. We were able to use the table view cell that was retrieved with this identifier, and then we were able to use it as a movie table view cell. Let's go back and look at storyboard. Our movie table view cell only has a label in it. So in its content view is a genre label. And then if you notice, when I'm looking at an element or a view or something within the content view of the movie table view cell, let's see what happens. It says automatically, I can bring you two options. I can bring you a view controller, or I can bring you that. I can bring you to the view controller that we've been kind of connecting to by default, but also automatically I can bring you to the class definition for this specific thing that you're in right now. And so what I did is I selected that automatically. I had two functions that were already built in, awake from nib and set selected. And all I did was set up an outlet from that label to my class definition here, so that when I dequeued one of these, and downcast it as a movie table view cell, I would set the text for that label that we had an outlet to. So I'm not making the outlet to my table view or from my table view in the view controller. The outlet is directly to that new view's definition, to the class definition for that new view. Now, anytime I go and I grab one of those views, I have available to me the name of that outlet. So this cell.genre label is saying that label that we have an outlet to in our storyboard. Just like for a UI table view cell, there's probably somewhere that these text label and detail text label come from. So again, these classes they have properties. So if we instantiate a movie table view cell here, so let cell equal something is a movie table view cell, then we get to use their properties. The property we have here is genre label. It's weird, huh? I think I'm going to carry this lesson over to Monday. So let's take a 6-minute break, come back for questions. I will give you a little bit of practice, which is going to be fun. It's going to be fun. Thanks, Leanna. Let's take 6 minutes. It's the Cocoa file. I'm sorry? Yes. Hi. You don't know why it's doing this.
I'm getting nothing. It worked before when I had this. I did the if left table view. Right, that's the name of my thing. No, it's not. That's all? Right, because table view that reusable cell, that should be the name of my.
Sorry. So with identifier.
Right,
Okay.
so should this be my outlet?
So your outlet is your table view, right? And now it's looking in your table view and saying, if there is something in the table view, some prototype that you've set up with this name, and if I can try to turn it into a movie table view cell, then I want to do this stuff to the cell and return it.
Okay, but then why is it doing that?
I don't know. There's probably more to it.
Well, I don't know what I'm missing. I copied everything.
Why did you copy everything? So let's go to the storyboard and take a look.
I have my label.
Can you open the document inspector?
Oh, did I not do that? No,
No, that makes
it's
sense.
there.
Okay, let's look at the movie table view cell. Look at its identity. Not the identifier, the identity tab. Cool, that looks right. Now let's look at the class for movie table view cell. Got an outlet, that makes sense. Okay, and now let's just go back to the controller. So put a breakpoint at 37 and relaunch that.
It turns green.
Okay, so it's in there. That's nice. Print out, so go into your output. Say PO space movie. Hit enter. Okay, PO movie genre. So from your breakpoint, we can look at start typing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was expecting it to pop up like it normally does.
Well, not every time. Cool, it's an action. Great. And now print out at a breakpoint at 38 as well. Then go forward. So like go to the next step. Print out cell. So this is right before it returns it. Hit enter. Okay, it's got some stuff going on. Now print out cell.genre.
So I have to put the question mark here too. Wait.
Tell me.
I'm gonna go with yes. Right?
Let's see. Okay, cool. So it looks like everything is set up. Let's see what is happening. So step through again. Step through again. So it's setting up each cell right now. You can just disable the breakpoint. So pressing that. Step through one last time. Let's see. Hey, when I go and tell you to reload, are you going to do it? It's like the insert are you constrained to the top of the view?
Yes.
Okay.
The constraints are around 0, 0, 0.
Very good question.
Should I just
Let's
restart
come
it?
back a little. Try that, but I think it is something in the code.
Okay.
Okay. Hello. Hi, everyone. So, yes, Tia? No? Hi. Yes. Good. Probably not. Like, you can leave your things here. We're going right after lunch. I'm sorry. Yes, we'll go to the park till 5. You could bring your stuff and leave right from there, or you could come back here. It's like a 16-minute walk. Yeah. Let's Google it. I actually don't even remember what the park is called. Kimball, I think you knew. What was the name of the park? Gantry Plaza State Park. Oh, it's on the water. That's nice. It's really not. We're right here. Let's take a look. Walking from Pursuit at Austal Place. 22 minutes. It's 22 minutes, but they're assuming that you walk at less than 3 miles per hour. No, none of you walk less than 3 miles per hour. I bet you all can make it there in 17 minutes. I know. Okay. See, that's nice. Okay, what are some questions you have about creating this custom view and then using it? Levi? No. What? Yes, we absolutely can. All right, let's say I've got... That's it. There's nothing to see. There's just an outlet. No, ma'am. So when I create something that is a subclass of a UI table view cell, I'm going to get these two override functions automatically, maybe like stubbed in, you might say. We'll do that in a second, Levi, but Sunny, what is the question you had?
Can you explain what you had said when you wrote
Self.content view, yes. So let's go look at our storyboard. The comparison I would make is that a view controller has self.view. A cell has, by default, self.content_view. So that's just literally the view in which any stuff in this cell will exist. Any stuff in this cell will be a subclass of content view, which each cell has. Mario, what is the question you have? Okay. Tia, what is the question you have? Sorry? Okay, that's great. What is one? Do questions dot random element. Okay. Is there a nil value? Okay, that's fine. Let's make a new cell from the top. So, I don't know if you remember, but yesterday when we were looking at the table view, and I wanted to give it some prototype cells. So right now we have one. I could add a second, and to this second one, let's change up what this one's job is. Okay? So this first movie table view cell, I'm being kind of sloppy here because I just want this to work. This first movie table view cell will display a genre. The second movie table view cell will display something else about a movie. So let's go look at a movie. Movies have a name and a year. Okay, so I'm going to make a new class, new Cocoa Touch class called Movie Year Table View Cell, just so I can show you how these give you different information. So if I go and I hit New Cocoa Touch class, I'm going to make a movie, what did I call it? Sorry. I'm going to make it name because that was totally not what I meant it to do. Movie name table view cell. The job of this cell is going to be to have the movie name. Great. So we're going to add a label at some point. This I'm going to add in that outermost folder. I'm starting to see that I've got a lot of views. Maybe I will take 3 of them, create a new group from selection, put them into my views folder. Maybe I'll go to my classes, make a new group from selection, add them to my models folder. Maybe just out of pure compulsion, I will make a new folder for the view controller called controllers. And maybe because I've really got a problem, I will just line this up alphabetically. So I've got controllers in this folder, models in this folder, views in this folder. Let's go look at that new view I created. Just like the other subclass of UI table view cell, this automatically has awake from nib. I'm going to say every time this awakes from nib, I'm going to print out yawn, I am awake. So every time I create a new UI table view cell of this specific type, so a movie name table view cell, it's going to yawn. So every time one is created in that specific data source function for the table view, right? That's when we create an instance of it. Every time one is created, it's going to yawn. And I'll set up a breakpoint so you can see that in a little bit. Now, let's go to my storyboard. In my storyboard, I want this label, I want this table view, what are you doing? Interesting. When I added a second prototype cell, it just copied the first one. I'm going to delete the info in that, change it up. I want the type of this second one to be movie name table view cell so that I can do different stuff with it. I want its identifier to be movie name table view cell. And to it, I want to add a label. Come on. Do something. And add a label. I'm going to set some constraints. I'm going to say that it's centered horizontally. Let's say that it's centered vertically. It's not protesting now, but what we're going to see on Monday is I'm going to want to be able to say that our label may be to the leading space in the container shouldn't be equal to 99, but maybe it should be less than or equal to 99, because if our label needs to grow, I want the constraint to get smaller. So that it's not stuck in space here, but instead, so that it can grow and make more space as the text changes in there. We want to make our constraints more dynamic. We don't want things to just be stuck, because especially with a label might have a variable number of letters in text. And so if it's always just 99 points from the left side, then I'll only be able to fit 5 or fewer letters. If I say I want it to be less than or equal to 99, that means I could be 60 points away from the left side. So that means if there needs to be more space for more letters, it'll start to grow to the left. That's super important, because think about like how tight of a space this content view is. You need to be able to size things based on the space that they have. When we were just throwing things into our view controller, we had all the space in the world. Now we're going to start dealing with cramped space. For right now, we don't really need that. So I'm going to get rid of it. Let's see what it says is our problem. Views without any layout constraints may clip their content or overlap other views. Wow, they may clip their content because I haven't set up how far away or what kind of flexibility it should have. All right, I'm going to make this a little bigger for now. Doesn't have to be dynamic, so I can show you. Make it nice and long. Great. I'm going to update the frame. Sorry, I'm going to update the constraints. Now it's going to say it's aligned to the center at -30, which is weird, but whatever. Needs more stuff. I'm just going to say it should have a constant width. I know, it's awesome. All right, we've got a new label in this different appearing movie name table view cell. Let's go hook that up to the class we just created called movie name table view cell. Right now, all it does is it prints yawn, I am awake when it awakes from its nib. Similar to Zib, and you do not have to worry about it just today. Now I'm going to create an outlet to it, which is the name label. Great. It's a name label. Yes. The second label? So I set its positioning so that it was first centered, and then I moved it to the left so that it's centered -30 in the X direction. So it's just kind of set up weirdly. I did that on purpose just so that visually we can see which label, so that we can see based on its alignment, because I'm going to use both of these cells in the same table view. Just to show you this example, I set them up so that their alignments are different so you can see. I just created a custom one. This didn't have title and subtitle. So yeah, that's a great point. In the attributes inspector, make sure your style is custom. Okay, so I've got a new one of these. I'm gonna just do a really janky thing where I say, if the row is even, give me a movie table view cell. Else, if the row is odd, give me a movie name table view cell. And otherwise, just return some regular ass table view cell. So if index path dot row, how do I say if it's even? Kevin? Great. Sorry. Yes. So if that modulo 2 equals 0, try to return this cell, which is a movie table view cell. So we dequeue a reusable cell, which returns a UI table view cell with this identifier. But then we try to downcast it as a movie table view cell. So again, this function returns a UI table view cell. And now we say, if you are able to, change it to be a movie table view cell. Set that genre label, return the cell. Great. Yes. Okay. That. Yes. Because that's the return of this function, is always a UI table view cell. And the superclass of our movie table view cell is a UI table view cell. They don't have to be named it. This identifier could have been like movie TVC. Where would I change this value in storyboard to make sure it matches? I would go to my storyboard. I would just make sure the reuse identifier is now movie TVC. So when it uses that function in my view controller to try to get a UI table view back, it's going and looking for literally this string. It's looking for that as the identifier. So if we have an even row, use this cell. Else, if we let the cell equal table view dot dequeue reusable cell with identifier movie name table view cell for index path, the index path that's passed as a parameter in this function as a movie name table view cell. So if we got that, cell dot name label is equal to movie dot name, return that cell. I'm going to get rid of this stuff. Let's see if this builds. I don't think it will. Can't assign string to type UI label. I have to set the text of the label. Let's see if it builds now. All right, let's see this really ugly thing I'm about to make. Cool. So for even rows, so 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, it used a movie table view cell, which just has a genre label. For odd rows, it used a movie name table view cell, which just has a name label. I set up that spacing so you can just see they're different. If you take a look, you see that 3, 4 movie name table view cells were initialized because when they awoke from their nib, they printed out, yawn, I am awake. This is just a new class that you are using. It's just a class. It just uses Interface Builder. The one new thing that you are learning today is creating a Cocoa Touch file and then linking something in your, I promise you, the only new things today are creating a new Cocoa Touch file and then using the class of that to set up a custom UI table view cell. So you're just setting the class of a table view cell to no longer be UI table view cell, but instead something custom that you want it to be. I could add an image view to the right side, like Olympia had, where it would just have your picture in it maybe, or the movie's picture, or something like that. But these are labels. They use outlets. They're in a table view. You've heard of a class before. Movie table view cell here is just a subclass of UI table view cell, which you used yesterday. The only new things are creating a Cocoa Touch class and then dequeuing it based on the class of the cell here. I promise. If you do those two mechanical steps, if you type them a few times, it will look familiar. I don't think you should do your midday check-in today because it starts to do a lot more to do with how the UI works within a table view cell. So we can move that back. What are some questions you have? Michelle. You would use a custom cell when you don't want to do that, when you want to define what those labels should be. Otherwise, you could be content to just use one of those out-of-the-box UI table view cells with the style, maybe subtitle. So this is like for a specific purpose. Eric. Yeah. So when I set the class of this table view cell and I added a label to it, when I open the assistant editor and I set this to automatic, there are two options. One is to go to the view controller in which all this stuff exists. The other is to go to that class I just set for the view controller. Now I can draw an outlet from the label. Oh, no. I can draw an outlet from the label to this class. Sunny? Simulator. Because I said in my data source function that picks out the cell for each row, that the even ones would just be the ones that have genre labels, and the odd ones would only the odd ones would be the ones with the titles. So this is even, this is odd, this is even, this is odd. That's just the data source.
It's not, for example, action is only referring to the first element of the array, and then the second one is the meaning of the second array.
Mm-hmm. Correct. Albert. What's that? Okay. Are you creating the outlet directly from the label, or are you creating it from the content view? Because it needs to be from the specific element in that controller. Yes. You know enough to start with step one. What we do on Monday will help you with the rest of it. So when we start doing multiple view controllers, then you'll get really used to it. But the first step is all table view stuff that you've seen before. We might remove a section that has to do with a search controller. We also might extend the project because we don't have a third project this unit. So that's kind of TBD. You can do step one.
So would it be like working on the project as you go along and the class, or would it be like you learn about it and then out loud and then you just
You'll be working on both. Next week we have 5 days of lessons. Then the week after is assessment, and we might just make this project due that week, right before the assessment, so that it's reviewing all of the skills in addition to the review we do in class. The assessment is TBD. It'll probably be in a similar format to the Unit 1 assessment, where you make a project and you answer stuff. Phoenix? Sorry, can you say that again? What do you guys say? Do you guys want a 15-minute practice? Because you have the afternoon off. Well, no, you won't be coding this afternoon. So I'm going to throw in Slack something that you should be able to do in 15 minutes.